not that they care about the office of the president. It's that they care they're losing. That's why it's coming.
I think you got it all wrong. When I think listen, this is not an administration that has lied. It just hasn't. Okay.
Not
you
one
can
lie?
laugh and you can
Not
stop.
one lie?
No, but you supported an administration that lied about the size of the crowd at the inauguration.
Do you honestly expect us to believe that they've never lied?
I think you're confusing administrations. And I think part of the reason that this hasn't been shut down, frankly, is because there's been breathless and somewhat reckless reporting by media.
The journalists? You're saying the journalists are wrong?
Yes, I do. I think that when okay, let me give you examples. I think that when journalists jump on the George Stephanopoulos interview and talk about how Mark Warner didn't run, I think they're wrong. Mark Warner ran. He ran for 5 hot minutes, but he got close enough to running. Where Joe Biden is saying that is not a lie.
We have to defend the journalists.
Anna Navarro. Oh, Anna, the longtime co-host of The Views, completely broke down on air during a Cannes panel discussion. And the catalysts. Scott Jennings had the nerve to confront the uncomfortable reality of President Joe Biden's alleged falsehood. That was all it took for Navarro to spiral into an emotional tailspin, clearly agitated and unwilling to accept any criticism of the president. What followed was nothing short of jaw-dropping. A violent, passionate outburst that quickly derailed the conversation and culminated in her running off the set. Whether you agree with her or not, the moment perfectly captured the growing tension in a media landscape where defending political figures has increasingly become a farce. Stick around, because what happened next is something you really have to see to believe.
Use a cognitive test. She says it's a good idea, Anna.
Look, Joe Biden needs a way to shut down all of this noise that's going on, right? I think he thought that if he kept doing events, that would shut it down. I think he thought that if he sent that letter that he did to Congress earlier in the week, that would shut it down. It hasn't shut it down. There's got to be a way to shut this down, because this is unsustainable. We cannot continue in this breathless reporting about Joe Biden's every word and splicing everything he says and does. So I think both candidates should take a cognitive exam.
And that was the question as well. I mean, it would probably be a smart political
thing. I think it should be a law. I think we need tax returns for anybody running for 10 years for anybody running for president. And I think we should know that they're not incapable, mentally incapable and insane. It would be a good idea to make it a law. I'm all for it, for both.
And to Anna's point, Joe Biden has not shut this down. I mean, the governor suggested that he said he's going to stay in the race, but this just keeps coming back.
No, it's been an issue in my view for at least 18 months, really. If you look at him on camera, and after the debate, everyone saw what they saw. Now, we were all watching it at once, and that's why the dam broke with the debate. So I think absolutely, if he wants to make a statement, he should absolutely do a cognitive test with multiple witnesses from both parties in the room. The longer he doesn't do it, the more he is saying to people, I'm afraid to do it because I'm afraid of the results.
Okay, I'm not advocating a cognitive test with multiple witnesses.
Well,
that's not like a virginity test, okay? And the medieval ages.
He doesn't need it. He doesn't need it. I mean, his issue is not.
Classic Anna, constantly interrupting others mid-sentence. But it doesn't stop there. The conversation escalated when someone suggested that both presidential candidates should undergo a cognitive test. Anna seemed to support the idea, but another panelist quickly pushed back, questioning whether she truly wanted that, hinting it might not go the way she expected. The panelist called the suggestion absurd, emphasizing that former President Trump has, on multiple occasions, provided medical documentation affirming his cognitive health. According to them, Trump has repeatedly demonstrated his mental fitness, while it's President Biden who continues to display concerning signs of cognitive decline. They argued that dragging Trump into the conversation was nothing more than a political diversion. If Biden truly wants to put the speculation to rest, he should simply take the cognitive test. No more excuses. Just do it and end the chatter once and for all. Interestingly, despite the disagreement, the panelists found common ground with Anna on one point. Perhaps it eschewed the illegal requirement. They proposed a trade-off: release 10 years of tax returns in exchange for Biden publicly taking and sharing the results of a cognitive assessment. Because at the end of the day, the American people deserve to know whether their president is mentally capable of leading the nation. Transparency shouldn't be optional. It should be expected.
a one-off cognitive test. His issue is that he's super old. He is an obvious decline from when he ran in 2020 and from when he served as vice president. And no test is going to reverse what we've seen. The reason he's having so much trouble with all this is because he spent his entire career getting used to his own largely fabricated personal narrative being successfully covered up. This is disorienting for him. This is the first time in his life that his personal narrative is not being covered up, either by Democrats or by media looking the other way. This is the first time we've seen on full display the truth of Joe Biden. They have covered this up for too long, for so long, and it's a scandal.
Scott, when you talk about covering up personal narrative, are you talking about the loss of his wife and daughter? Are you talking about the loss of his son to cancer? Are you
saying Joe Biden has never made up a story about his personal narrative?
No, but I'm saying his personal narrative is a narrative about a man who has been steeped in pain and steeped in things that most of us would struggle to get through, who kept battling away at it, kept showing up for people, kept fighting for the middle class, who grew up in small town Scranton. That's his personal narrative. That's what it is that attracts people to Joe Biden. It's been a thing that sort of held him up the entire time in his political career. And I think
The loyal defenders are doing exactly what they always do, running interference and shielding the narrative. Honestly, it baffles me why they continue to go to such lengths to defend the indefensible. At this point, the only explanation that makes sense is that there's a significant paycheck involved. There has to be some kind of incentive driving this unwavering loyalty, because logic and integrity certainly aren't it.
Kind of not right for anybody to say.
You think it's not? You think
he's covering that up?
You think
that's so honestly true about his life.
First of all, he has told lie after lie after lie about his life.
Did I say anything right now that was a lie?
But the biggest lie.
Did I just say anything that was a lie?
Do you want to go through and rehash all the stories he has taught?
No, but I just
but here's the deal. But here's the deal.
Let me just say this. You support Donald Trump. This is a guy who began.
I haven't announced who I work here.
You're obviously not supporting Donald. You're not obviously not supporting Joe Biden.
I don't give money to anybody.
I will happily give all my money to Joe Biden, because if the other choice is Donald Trump, that's a binary choice. But okay, the other choice is a guy who began lying about how to dodge the draft because of made-up bone spurs. He doesn't even remember which foot he had those.
So what level of lying is acceptable? This is what I don't get about this Biden versus Trump lying debate.
But
apparently, if you tell one less lie than Donald Trump, that's good enough. Is that the bar you want to set? This is a scandal. What has been covered up about Biden for the last 3.5 years or more by his staff, by Democrats? Look at this George Clooney op-ed. Well, 3 weeks ago, we all saw it. Well, why didn't anybody say anything that night? It's not that they care about the office of the president. It's that they care they're losing. That's why it's coming.
About 3 weeks ago, during that now infamous fundraiser where President Biden's performance raised serious concerns, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre dismissed the footage as a cheap fake. If I'm not mistaken, the hosts of The View, often referred to dismissively by critics, echoed the same sentiment, insisting the video wasn't genuine and defending Biden's sharpness. Over on Mission P, personalities like Joe Scarborough were also quick to assure viewers that the president was still mentally fit, claiming he hadn't lost a step. But then came the bombshell. An op-ed from none other than George Clooney, someone with significant influence and ties to the Democratic establishment. Suddenly, the tone shifted. It was as if that piece gave permission for concerned voices to finally speak up. Now, the very same people who were so adamant in their defense are scrambling, trying to backpedal and salvage their credibility. It's honestly absurd to watch unfold. And then there's Anna Navarro. For someone who once identified as a Republican, she now seems fully aligned with far-left progressive talking points. Being a co-host on The Views, a show owned by Disney and known for its liberal leanings, she's become one of Biden's most vocal defenders. At this point, it's clear where her loyalties lie, and they no longer seem to reflect the conservative principles she once claimed to uphold.
You got it all wrong. When I think listen, this is not an administration that has lied. It just has. Okay,
not
you
one
can
lie.
Laugh and you can
not
stop.
One lie.
I think you've completely misunderstood the situation. Listen, this is not an administration built on lies. It simply isn't. Okay, go ahead and laugh if you want. But facts speak for themselves. The facts speak for themselves. But honestly, how can she say that with a straight face? Seriously, how can anyone make that claim with such confidence when the evidence suggests otherwise? It's baffling.
But you supported an administration that lied about the size of the crowd at the inauguration.
Do you
That
honestly
lied
expect
for a
us to
living.
believe that they've never
I think
lied?
you're confusing administrations. And I think part of the reason that this hasn't been shut down, frankly, is because there's been breathless and somewhat reckless reporting by
Are you
media.
the
and by
journalists?
people-
You're saying the journalists are wrong?
Yes, I do. I think that when okay, let me give you examples. I think that when journalists jump on the George Stephanopoulos interview and talk about how Mark Warner didn't run, I think they're wrong. Mark Warner ran. He ran for 5 hot minutes, but he got close enough to run.
sorry, we
where
have to
Joe
defend-
Biden's saying that is not a lie.
We have to defend the
No, no,
journalists.
no,
I'm
no,
sorry.
let
We
me
have
just-
journalists at
listen,
CNN,
no, no, no,
the Wall Street Journal,
Let
the
me
New York
just-
Times.
I think that
These are
when
journalists.
I think that when journalists
take a
jump
pause
to
here for a
conclusions
second.
about a Parkinson's specialist that has been part of the White House medical unit
That they've
for
lied
over
about.
a decade.
They've lied about it
What
today.
part did they lie about?
Let's just take a pause for
What,
that
what
because
part did
I
they
want
lie
to talk
about?
about the George Clooney
The
of
guy
it all.
went. No, wait, hold on, Abby.
Karine has repeatedly lied about this.
No, she has
And about-
not.
and about
No,
who-
you
and
are
about-
lying
and
right
about
now.
whether
Let me just
Biden
tell
was in
you
the
this.
meeting. She
no,
lied about it.
No, they have not.
How much is Anna Navarro really being paid to defend President Biden so passionately, so relentlessly? Seriously, how much is she making? Because at this point, it's hard to believe it's just about principles. The administration has been called out numerous times over the years for falsehoods and misleading statements. Yet, despite all of that, she continues to double down in his defense. You have to wonder, what's really motivating that level of loyalty?
This is a White House medical unit doctor who has been part of this since Obama. During the Obama administration, he visited the White House over 20 times. Did Obama have Parkinson's? They have said.
I think you need to catch up on the news tonight. That's all.
No, I think you need to go read the truth. And you see, this narrative is part of the reason why all of these questions have not been shut down. And I do think there's been reckless
I hear what
reporting.
you're saying, but there's no question that it's not a media narrative. 50 million
You
people.
don't think the media has, you
50
don't think there's
million
been reckless
people
reporting by
watched-
some media?
50 million people watched the president
Yeah.
on that debate stage. And on the George Clooney of it all, George Clooney was at this fundraiser, right? And the fundraiser they raised $28 million. He comes out of it and he thinks that something is wrong. And he goes to write this op-ed, and according to the New York Times tonight, the White House tries to stop him. They send Jeffrey Katzenberg to try to get him to not publish this op-ed. Another person who was at that fundraiser now comes forward and says the president did not look great that night. So it's not a media narrative. It's also coming from people who love and respect Joe Biden. They are just deeply concerned.
A lot of people are genuinely concerned right now. And let's be real, if President Biden were your grandfather, you'd probably be telling him to step back and take it easy. You know it. I know it. We all know it. But then you have people like Anna Navarro jumping in, defensive as ever. She can't actually counter the points Abby made, yet she keeps trying to dominate the conversation. Filibustering, deflecting, anything to avoid facing the uncomfortable truth. And let me tell you, Anna completely went off the rails during that Khan segment, so much so that the network had to cut her off. Now you know it's serious when even Ken, which leans left, feels the need to shut down one of their own. And of course, she found a way to circle it all back to Trump, because that's the go. To move when there's no defense left. Scott Jennings, on the other hand, hit the nail on the head. The Democrats are desperately trying to reshape the narrative because deep down, they know they're losing control of it. You've got two choices. Either continue backing Biden, repeating falsehoods and gaslighting the American people, telling them what they're seeing with their own eyes isn't real, or finally acknowledge what's been obvious for the last few years and risk political fallout. What makes it worse is they act like it's no big deal. They're telling us Biden is still sharp, still capable, when clearly something's not right. And now we're hearing whispers about possibly replacing him with Kamala Harris at the DNC's convention in Chicago this August. But let's be honest, she may be mentally present, but her leadership ability is questionable at best. She's not the solution either. So yes, the Democratic Party is caught between a rock and a hard place. They're scrambling, doing everything they can to protect Biden's presidency, or at least salvage what's left of it. And it's sad. It really is sad to see so much effort going into propping up an administration instead of putting the country first. And shout out to Scott Jennings, by the way. I know he works at Ken, which often toes the Democratic line, but credit where it's due. He called it like it is, and that's what we need more of. We need more people in mainstream media who aren't afraid to speak truth to power, who are willing to call out the nonsense no matter who it comes from, because let's be real, public trust in the media has plummeted. When people hear figures like Karine Jean-Pierre or outlets like Cannes, The View or MSNBC speak, the default assumption is that they're spinning the truth, if not outright lying. That's the credibility gap we're dealing with. Anyway, let me know what you think. Like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Keep God first, stay grounded, stay informed, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.